a special guest with me today, my good friend Andy Garris from ProFabrication Headers and Exhaust. So tell us a little bit about this. I want to know, first of all, what chassis this fits. And then secondly, I would love for you to explain your collector design, that whole little contraption thing, because this was something that was developed like around this time last year. It was about when that came about, and it was a result of problem solving, and plus it looks cool. So tell us about these.
Yeah, so I kind of put this endeavor off for a long time, even though I had a bunch of guys messaging me and texting me and calling me and you got to do it, you got to do it, got to do it. I finally fell for it. But this class is so growing. It's growing everywhere. It's growing locally. It's growing nationally. The whole 602 street stock deal is definitely growing. So the first chassis we did build these on was a Johnson chassis, which everybody knows that's actually a fabricated front clip car. It's stock front clip locations, but it's still a fabricated car. So we went back and forth with Ricky Green, fitting wise. I think our owner Steve drove back and forth to his shop probably 10 times, it felt like, just making sure every little thing, because we did decide to do it inside the frame header. That's a whole nother topic, because a lot of guys want over the top headers, right, or crossover headers. Well, I don't care if you put 30 inches inside the frame or if you put 30 inches over the top of the motor, you still got 30 inches. And I'm talking about tube length. So
you didn't make that any better.
Yeah. so there is no advantage running a over the frame header versus inside the frame header. The biggest thing is here is it's tucked in. You're gonna have a hard time unless something breaks or you have a really hard wreck. You're gonna have a hard time getting to it. So it was easier for us to say, hey, we know all this will fit most cars. It is a metric front clip car, so like a Monte Carlo style car. It'll fit so many different cars versus trying to come up with, Billy Joe put his bar here, Bobby Joe put a bar here, that kind of thing. So we did use our Cnc Machine Flanges, so still no laser cut flanges, so we didn't really cheapen out on anything there.
I know it's something you and I talked about, and and tell us the advantage of when you've got a CNC flange like this. Well, and let's talk about, before we go into that, let's talk a little bit about flanges. And I have this conversation a lot where people ask about the 602 versus the 604.
Yep.
Because their bolt locations are in exactly the same spots. So you really could take a 602 header and slap it on a 604 and vice versa. But there's a big difference.
Right. So the biggest difference so I'll start with the CNC Machine Flange first off. It does allow us to lighten it up a little bit. It also allows us, we do 3/8 thick flanges, therefore when we flat sand them and everything, the back of our flange, make sure I don't hit anything here, is perfectly flat. There's nothing sticking out in the flange. You shouldn't have an issue with sealing up, whether you want to use Steve Hendren's red RTV.
That's a running joke about how much he hates the red silicone.
He sells it. Check him out, Hendren. You can call him, ask him for a big tube of it. Or you can use any, obviously I would always say use metal gaskets, but any gasket realistically that'll fit a 602 or a 604. They're probably the same gaskets for the most part. They probably slot them, but they will fit, and it'll snug up nice. There's nothing impeding anything. We clean out all the ports, so there's nothing hanging over. There's nice smooth transition. Now going back to the 602, 604. So the biggest difference between the 602, 604, they're still the same amount of bolt holes. They're all still in a straight line, and they will bolt up on either or.
Yeah, they will. Right.
But a 604 has a raised port. So what that's saying is the port relation to bolt hole is raised. So where this is the 602, it's directly in the middle of the port. 604, you'll look and it'll seem like the ports are higher, in relation to the bolt hole. A lot of companies will slot holes and make them fit both. We personally don't do that because I don't want someone to call me and be like, hey, I'm down 30 foot-pounds of torque and 40 horsepower or something, and they have their header bolted up wrong. I just think that's one less thing that we have to worry about. So I make flanges specifically for the 604 and then one specifically for the 602. It makes, you know, it just makes a lot nicer product. When you bolt it up, it's exactly where it needs to go. There's no question about if it needs to go all the way up or all the way down or sideways or people stripping out stuff, whatever. It's made specifically for that head.